Namaste. So now in the previous 7 to 8 dedicated lectures on the United Nations, we have covered out a few of the specialized agencies. And again, before starting out on this, let me bore you to death again by narrating out the 6 organs of the United Nations. What are they? Ye ratni hai. Matlab, there is no way out of it. Trusteeship Council, ECOSOC, the Security Council, that is the 3 councils, Chautha, ICJ, UN Secretariat, and the General Assembly. So 3 councils, 1 court, and 2 other. Basically, you would say, these 2 other organs are what you would mark generally, but usually students skip out on marking UN Secretariat, which is an organ. Now, the question reads as, which of the following is not an organ of the United Nations? All right. So one of these is usually that option which you have to mark in the which of the following is not an organ of the United Nations. So they are specialized agencies, they are not an organ. And another MCQ in this is WTO a specialized agency of the United Nations or an organ of the United Nations? It's neither. So we are going to look at WTO in the next lecture. Now specialized agencies, we have already covered out 3 to 4 in the dedicated lectures that we have in the course in the static GK section. So the FAO is the Food and Agriculture Organization, the headquarters in Italy. We have already covered it, therefore the tick. Then we come to ICAO. ICAO is basically headquartered in Montreal, Canada. Now what is ICAO? It is the International Civil Aviation Organization. तो एक तरीके से आप ये याद कर सकते हैं that planes or flights are taking off from Montreal or Canada, because this is perhaps the only specialized agency that is based there. Rest are in Italy and mostly are in Geneva. All right, but this guy is special, only based out of Canada. Basically the only one out of this list that is based out in Canada. So the Chicago Convention 1944 is related to the ICAO. It develops the standard for global air transport. So it is not a global regulator as such, just like in the manner that Interpol is not an international police force. It just monitors, it just coordinates the nation states. Zyada ye sab yaad karne ki zarurat nahi. Just write the headquarters, write the full form, write the convention, Chicago Convention 1944, and basically this convention is also known as the Convention on International Civil Aviation 1944. So if they ask you, what did the convention, or they usually ask you, the Chicago Convention 1944 led to the development or establishment of which organization? The ICAO, that is the International Civil Aviation Organization. Okay, then we come to here again, as usual, iske bhi flight udti rehti hai. IFAD is headquartered in Rome, Italy. What is IFAD? That's the International Fund for Agriculture Development, established in 1977 after the 1974 World Food Conference. Write this down. So write the full form down, write the headquarter down, write this down, 1974 World Food Conference, and which was basically held after the famine in Bangladesh in the preceding 2 years to this conference. So that I believe is 72 and 73 mein, the famine that struck Bangladesh, that led to the World Food Conference, that led to the United Nations forming the International Fund for Agriculture Development. The headquarter, as usual with all food related organizations, is Rome, Italy. Okay, fourth is ILO, that is the only tripartite agencies of the United Nations, headquartered in Geneva, Switzerland. I think I just said agencies. No, it is agency. Let us use correct English. Okay, so ILO is that, and IMF. ILO we have already discussed, by the way, in detail in the previous lecture already, so I'm not going to go into the conventions, the details, the days associated, because this is again bada hathi hai. We have to tackle it dedicatedly. IMF, as always, IMF DC, so it's Washington DC, again discussed already. If you haven't really made notes, go to the previous lectures and watch that. Now we come here, the IMO, that is the International Maritime Organization. Don't confuse it with meteorology, wo baat ki baat hai. So IMO is headquartered in London, UK. तो ये थोड़े सा अलग headquarter है, तो please write it down. IMO in London, UK. The original name was IMCO, that is the Intergovernmental Maritime Consultative Organization. The name was changed in 1982. Another crucial MCQ is, अच्छा तो हमने पहले ICAO में we saw the global standards for the related to the airline industry, and basically आपके जो planes जोड़ रहे हैं, this is relating to the ships that are there. Now the Tori Canyon, basically, now what is the Tori Canyon or Tori Canyon tanker oil spill? This is a very crucial static GK even from the point of the UPSC, they usually, this was used to be asked up to it's gone out of date, but still we'll cover it. So Tori Canyon was basically a tanker that caused around 120,000 tons of crude oil spill, and basically after this oil spill, the IMO it started looking at the pollution caused by the oil leakages and spillages by these oil tankers. Okay, so if ever, basically this is now out of date, but kabhi pooch le Tori Canyon is related to what, the Tori Canyon disaster is related to what, they can give earthquake, tsunami, oil spill. What is the option? Oil spill. तो IMO का headquarter लिख लिया, original नाम आपने जरूर लिखता है Intergovernmental Maritime Consultative Organization, because they can ask you what is the original name of the IMO, this, okay, and it is a specialized agency and it forms the shipping regulatory framework. And the most crucial MCQ, I believe this has already been asked in AILET 2020 as well, and we had already covered it out in the current affairs as well. So India ratified the IMO Hong Kong Convention for Recycling of Ships. We joined in 2020. This was a crucial question for the 2020 examinations, but mind you, since this has been asked in AILET 2020, this still remains a hot favorite of the examiners for the 2021-2022 exams, because it hasn't really gone out of date. So mark it in red somewhere, can show up in the exam of your choice. Then we go to the International Telecommunication Union, ITU. All right, the headquarters are in Geneva, Switzerland, and this is one of the oldest international organizations that ever has been in existence. इनका पहले क्या नाम होता था? International Telegraph Union. Now established in 1865, it allocates the global radio spectrum plus satellite orbits, etc., etc. So nations are on the same page on 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G, and which satellite to use for which GPS, etc., etc. That is the ITU, International Telecommunication Union. Usually people forget, but this is a specialized agency of the United Nations, mind you, not an organ. Okay, then we go to UNESCO. यूनेस्को, अगेन यूनेस्को इज दैट बड़ा हाथी, इसके ऊपर जो क्वेश्चन जो आता है, 2-3 तरीके के क्वेश्चन आते हैं, लेट्स डिस्कस देम ऑल. यूनेस्को फर्स्ट एंड फॉरमोस्ट द हेडक्वार्टर्स इज इन पेरिस, सो नाउ वी गोइंग टू फ्रांस. माइंड यू, अभी तक आईसीओ कहाँ था, फ्लाइट कहाँ से उड़ेगी, मॉन्ट्रियल कनाडा से, राइट. यूनेस्को हेडक्वार्टर्स पेरिस, बिकॉज वी कैन एसोसिएट इट, तो मैंने ऐसा दिमाग में ट्रिगर लगाया हुआ है कि कल्चर पेरिस. ओके, नाउ ये क्वेश्चन जरूर आता है, द यूनेस्को डील्स विद फॉलोइंग एरियाज. So the options are educational, scientific, cultural, या education, science, culture, और तीसरा आता है economic. क्या मार्क करना है? Which of the following basically areas is not the domain of the UNESCO? क्या मार्क करेंगे? Economics या religion, ऐसी कोई option. 3 चीजें याद रखनी, educational, scientific and culture, and headquarters is in Paris. Now 1945 में this was established as soon as the United Nations came into existence, I believe. So this is the successor to the League of Nations organization, which was called as the International Commission on Intellectual Cooperation. Mark this in red. This is a bloody crucial MCQ. International Commission on Intellectual Cooperation. So the question is framed as, UNESCO is the successor to which of the following organizations? And this similar question is asked on WTO as well. But when we come to WTO, we are going to discuss that. Okay, so UNESCO का अपने काम करना है. And so some people say कि नहीं, this is way too fast. Pause the goddamn video, note it down. It's as simple as that. Advantage of a video, correct? Then we come here. The first female leader of UNESCO, Irina Bokova. She was heading it UNESCO basically till 2017. I've noted down because the current DG, that is the Director General, is Audrey Azoulay. I believe she was in India in 2020 as well. She is the first one. Now Audrey is the second woman leader to head the UNESCO. That is one more MCQ. Then that's about it from UNESCO that we are going to cover. If you wish to cover out any other detail, then the internet is pretty much your best friend, but I don't believe that you should be spending any time, because we have already covered out the most important bit already. Art, this is the, I believe this is the 9th lecture in United Nations that we are doing, and I believe only 1 to 2 more are left. So UNIDO. Now what is UNIDO? United Nations Industrial Development Organization. This is associated with the Lima Declaration. Lima is a town in Paris. All right. So this again, this was the original declaration 1975. Then this was amended in 2013 as well. But खैर हमने इतना अपने law entrances के level पे नहीं जाना. UPSC कर रहे हो तो बात अलग थी. Headquarters is in Vienna. Please write it down. Vienna, Austria. So now we have reached Austria as well. तो पूरे हम basically घूम रहे हैं पूरी दुनिया. So UNIDO is a specialized agency. Then there is something called as the UNWTO. This is different from the standard WTO. UNWTO is actually the World Tourism Organization headquartered in Madrid, Spain. So this is very easy to remember. टमाटर मारने कहाँ जाते हैं एक दूसरे को? Madrid. अगर टमाटर मारने कहाँ जाते हैं? बहुत जिंदगी ना मिलेगी दोबारा. या ऐसी कुछ पिक्चर थी ना that ऋतिक रोशन टाइप कुछ उसमें La Tomatina or something that entire festival is there. So tourist kahan jayega? That's the way to remember it. Going to Spain. Okay, so UNWTO. Then we go to the UPU. So UPU is the Universal Postal Union. This is a crucial organization. People usually don't believe that it's a specialized agency of the United Nations, but it is. So write it down. Headquartered in Bern, Switzerland, and also basically exist thanks to the Treaty of Bern of 1874. This again is one of the most crucial, rather the most oldest international organizations in existence. Now mind you, this was actually a hot question of 2020, but since it didn't materialize, so they didn't ask it. But US in 2019 they threatened to withdraw from the UPU over some tariff exchange rates, etc., of parcels on the international front. So Donald Trump said, well, as usual, Donald Trump used to say that I'm not going to be a part of this treaty. Then we go to WHO, which is again a bada wala hathi that we have to cover out in detail. Headquartered in Geneva, Switzerland. Now, mind you, why is this so important any which way? Because thanks to COVID and thanks to the related questions of COVID and on WHO, which didn't show up in the 2020 examinations, they're going to show up in successive years. Now, whether you're watching this for 2021, 2022, 2023, all of this remains valid. Therefore, it's called static GK. Okay. 7th April 1948 it was established. It is also celebrated as the World Health Day. So whatever days that we have covered in the course up till now, please write it down on the World Health Day from the question practice sets. Whatever days that we have covered, write it down in your days value list. That's the World Health Day. It also has a constitution. So which of the following specialized agencies of the United Nations has a constitution? So just like our constitution, they also have a constitution. So this is a special feature of the WHO. So 7th April 1948 established World Health Day, Constitution of the WHO. Then what is the preamble state? And this is a frequent question. In fact, it used to be a frequent question, but I haven't seen in the law entrance in the last 5 to 7 years now. Health is a state of complete physical, mental and social well-being and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. वाह, तो पूछ लेगा ये कहाँ लिखा हुआ है और ऑप्शन दे देगा यूनिवर्सल डिक्लेरेशन ऑफ ह्यूमन राइट्स which we have already discussed by the way. वहाँ पे नहीं है. This is the preamble of the constitution of the WHO. So write it down. Pause the video. Like after I read it, then pause the video. Health is a state of complete physical, mental and social well-being and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. Write it somewhere down. So just like we had covered the Human Rights Declaration, में भी याद आ रहा है कुछ एक sentence था which is very very crucial. If you haven't, you don't remember it, go back to the previous video, the lecture that is, and watch it. तो वो आपने ज़रूर करना है. अच्छा, now from this year onwards this body becomes important. So this is the executive body of the, or rather you can say the governing board of the World Health Organization, known as the WHA. It's the World Health Assembly. Now this is not out of WHO, so this is not a separate body. This is the body. So this is just like you can say the General Assembly of the United Nations. So WHO के अंदर ही हैं हम, उसी topic के अंदर हैं, but the governing board is known as the World Health Assembly. Okay. Now India has been elected as the chairman of the WHO board, that is the WHA. All right. So therefore, from 2020 onwards, this body becomes extremely crucial. All right. So Dr. Harshvardhan is right now the chairperson of the executive board. The DG right now of WHO is Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus. I believe, whatever the pronunciation is, GHEBREYESUS. The Director General term is 5 years. This guy has been criticized a lot for his, mishandling of the COVID pandemic. So Tedros Adhanom, but mind you, he's the Director General of the WHO. But who is right now heading or rather, who is the chairperson of the executive board? That is WHO. Which country is heading it? It's India, and Dr. Harshvardhan, our health minister. Extremely crucial MCQ. Note it down. 13 will most likely show up especially in the AILET and even for DU will show up. Now WIPO, again, bada wala hathi, that we have to watch very carefully. Headquarters in Geneva, Switzerland. WIPO is basically the favorite of examiners. Write down the headquarters, that is Geneva, Switzerland. Director General, now this is a current affair question, and this is a very, very crucial current affair question. Who is the new DG of WIPO? He basically took charge from the 1st October 2020, so becomes a hot topic for 2021 and successive 2022, 2023 exams as well, because he's going to stay for, I believe, 2 to 3 years, but I'm not concerned about the tenure, because that question is not generally asked, that what is the term of the DG of WIPO. ऐसे इतनी डिटेल में नहीं जाना. अगर इतनी डिटेल में जाता भी है वो, it is impossible for us to remember, because we have to remember a hell lot more, so we might as focus there. But नाम जरूर याद रख लीजिएगा, Darren Tang. Please, ये आएगा इस साल, most likely आ सकता है, because this is a new appointment and this guy is the favorite of the examiners. Okay, now Cambodia has registered Camport Pepper. So WIPO is related to what? I forgot about that. This is the World Intellectual Property Rights Organization, so it relates to IPR primarily, and hopefully you have started watching the lectures of IPR in the legal module of your course. If not, please do so. Cambodia has registered the first GI tag under the Geneva Act of Lisbon. This will show up in the AILET 2021, right, and will show up in successive exams hereafter. So what is the commodity's name? It is Camport Pepper. The country's name is Cambodia. All right. Now, Geneva Act of Lisbon system, the predecessor of the WIPO is the, write it down, United International Bureaux, BUREAUX, for the protection of intellectual property rights. So French, basically जो French इसका जो abbreviation, that's BIRPI. We're going to discuss this on the next page as well. So write it down, BIRPI. WIPO is a successor of BIRPI. Okay, the name is United International Bureaux for the Protection of IP. तो इसका abbreviation actually French में जो इसकी जो उल्टी सीधी जो French में जो नाम है उसके abbreviation BIRPI है, but it is commonly called as BIRPI. And this is an important static GK का question. ठीक है जी. तो Bureaux से याद कर लेंगे, Bureaux BUREAUX है यहाँ पे. Bureaux, actually Bureaux, I will call it Bureaux. So ये वाला option आपने mark करना है if they ever ask you WIPO is the successor of what. ठीक है जी. अच्छा, World Intellectual Property Day is celebrated on the 26th April. I believe was asked in DULLB 2019, and again and again this is quite a hot day for the examiners to ask, as in not hot as in terms of temperature or anything, but just keeps on very, very frequently appearing. Mera special 26 wala IP. I remember this was given out in the PDF for the 2019 batch. So कृपया करके write down कर लीजिए. Helps you to remember, right? Special 26 wala IP, World Intellectual Property Day. ठीक है जी. And in 1970 there was the convention establishing the WIPO. Okay, now herein we go आगे. Now, two conventions that are related to the WIPO. So the first one, write it down, 1883 Paris Convention. Second one is 1886, the Bern Convention, again asked in DULLB 2019. The Bern Convention is associated with which of the following bodies? The answer was WIPO. Alright. Now, after these conventions, both of these conventions led to the formation of BIRPI in 1893, which was headquartered at Bern, which went to then Geneva in the 1960, and then 1970 we changed its name to WIPO. So BIRPI के बाद आ गया जी WIPO. So which are the two conventions that are associated? The Paris Convention 1883. Do not confuse it with the Paris Climate Change Agreement वाला जो हमने जो dedicated lecture में already covered out. सब किया हुआ है, UNFCCC and the Kyoto Protocol and the Paris आपका climate change agreement. Now US I believe has already joined back. Yeah, that was the first executive order of Biden I believe. But आगे देखते हैं उसको. अच्छा, another hot favorite of the examiners is the GII, the Global Innovation Index, that is published by WIPO. Actually, it is co-published by Cornell University. That's an Ivy League school in the US, as in it's a college school. They usually call it school. So that's, I believe, in New York. Then NCR is another very, very coveted MBA program in the world. Very, very tough to get in both of these universities. So this is like a very, very elite sort of an index. So the Global Innovation Index, usually इसमें इंडिया की रैंकिंग भी पूछी जा सकती है और इस बारी 2020 की आई भी हुई है. But I'm not going to include it here because otherwise this video will lose its relevance in the coming years, because this is this is static GK, so will let it remain static GK. Therefore I'm not even discussing the DGs etc. क्योंकि हमने इतनी डिटेल में करनी है and then they keep on changing again and again. But write down, so who publishes GII? Actually the examiner is not technically correct because Cornell and NCR also co-publish it, but they usually ask कि भैया who publishes it, और चार आपको यूनाइटेड नेशंस वाली ऑर्गेनाइजेशन दे देगा रादर और पूछ लेगा और उसमें से एक होगी WIPO. आपने क्या मार्क करना? WIPO, simple as that. Now the World Meteorological Organization, all right, so this was used to be called as the International Meteorological Organization. It originated from the 1873 Vienna International Meteorological Congress. I believe इसमें ज़्यादा कुछ भी नहीं है, कभी ज़्यादा कुछ पूछते भी नहीं है इसका. अच्छा जी, I believe मैं यहाँ पे हेडक्वार्टर्स लिखने भूल गया हूँ इसके समय. मैं अभी स्क्रीन पे डाल देता हूँ, ठीक है, ओके. Then the World Bank we have already discussed in a huge amount of depth, stationed in DC. In the next one, now we go to related organizations. Mind you, these are not specialized agencies. This is not an organ of the United Nations. Be very careful. तो आगे हमने जो most important जो discuss करनी है, थोड़ी बहुत, ज़्यादा नहीं, but usually, for example, DU is hot favorite forever. Anytime anything happens with the IAEA, question पूछ लेता है, or like who is the DG, who's the new thing, or whatever the IAEA has done. IAEA, UNFCCC, इसके बारे में हम ऑलरेडी बात कर चुके हैं. WTO, ITC, WTO के बारे में हमने बात करनी है. The OPCW, CTBTO, IOM. I'm not even going to go into the full forms. We are going to discuss this in the very next lecture and just cover out, like for example WTO we have to look in a bit of detail. So WTO and GATT we'll have to look. It's a very hot favorite of our examiners, like has been forever. All right, now hopefully it is clear. Just write down whatever pointers I've told you. I believe they are more than sufficient for the preparation of any law entrance related static GK portion of the United Nations. And now see you in the next lecture where we cover out related organizations. I believe that will be the 10th or the 11th lecture in the course. And then I believe one more will be left to cover out some funds of the United Nations. And that will pretty much kill off the entire United Nations ka kaam for you. Okay, ji. Now see you in the next one. Take care.